every politician, very few politicians ever say all protocols observed. The reason is that as a politician, you must greet everybody. Otherwise, a portion of your constituency might complain. So don't mind me, I have to say. In fact, I have not said the very distinguished members of the press. I think I should also greet you, and of course all the men and women of God who are present here today. This is a very important work, and I'm sure that for those who have had an opportunity to read it, it clearly does what I might say has not been done very clearly in contemporary times, situating the role of the major religions, the two, as has been described, world religions, Christianity and Islam, in the shaping of Nigeria. But I want to just say again, just to take the sort of license that Professor Soyinka took in tweaking the title somewhat, I too will tweak it a bit to say that it's not just religion in the making of Nigeria, but religious conflict in the making of Nigeria. Because religion, in some senses, has been salutary in certain respects. For example, I'm sure that all of us will accept that in the area of education, especially in southern Nigeria, religion has played a very, very positive role. And even in northern Nigeria, especially with respect to education, and several other social aspects of our lives, religion has played a very important role. I think the problem has always been religious conflict and how that has shaped our country, and that for me is a part of it that interests me a great deal. But I want to just talk about two or three issues that I think might at least help me to better understand what we are faced with. The first is to clearly understand that it is really the elite manipulation of religion that has led to the various conflicts that we experience. And you see, the real issue is that everyone realizes that some form of identification, whether it's identification with religion or ethnicity, may lead to advancement. It could lead to a political advancement, it could lead to commercial advancement, whatever, advancement. But it's very clear that we have honed this elite manipulation to a point where it can be useful in whatever way that we choose to play it. It is merely, in my view, and in many cases you will find that, as you understand it better, it's very clear that the Nigerian elite will choose when it is convenient to use religion for advancement, and when it's convenient, they may use ethnicity or some other form of identification. I very frequently have to look at charge sheets. People who have been charged for various offenses. I was Attorney General for 8 years in Lagos. But here in Abuja, if you take a look at a charge sheet that tells you who is charged with stealing 1 billion of public resources, you will find equal representation in the list of accused persons. You'll find Muslims, you'll find Christians, you'll find a person from the northwest, one from the southwest, one from the east, one from the south-south. There is complete federal character and complete representation of the religions. So there's no question at all that when it comes to deriving some form of benefit, there is no division. There's complete unanimity in the way that this is done. And you find that the elite is united in the various things that have led to the underdevelopment of this country. the inability for the Nigerian elite to come together to reach some consensus as to how the polity, as to how this country should be properly managed for the benefit of all. Some of that is ideology, some of that is ideological. What sort of economic policies will conduce to ensuring that a nation such as ours is governed properly? You will find that, that if you look at almost historically, there is no real concern for how the majority of Nigerians will benefit from this Nigerian project. And that is a consensus of sorts that is reached by the elite, whether they are Muslims or Christians or wherever they are from. So for me, the very first thing is to understand that it is that manipulation, is that frequent use of religion for manipulative purposes that really has led to a lot of the instability that we're experiencing. Unfortunately, the discussions around these issues are always emotional. And the reason why they're emotional is clear. The first is that we usually discuss these things after some major conflagration or the other. Second is that they must be emotional anyway. I mean, if your relations, family members have been killed, or your loved ones have been killed, you're bound to be emotional about the issues. But the mere fact that those discussions take place in an atmosphere of a lot of fire and very little light has led to a situation where time and time again we are unable to proffer what to do, what is it that we need to do to ensure that religion does not become, as Professor Oluyemi Oluleke has said, the unmaking of Nigeria. What is it that we need to do? It's not enough for us to, and I think it's been rightly pointed out, that a lot of the issues, a lot of what we talk about are the symptoms. The injustice associated with the dominance of any religion anywhere, killings, violence, etc., and all of that, are mere symptoms of a much more deep-seated problem. And so if we focus on those injustices, if we focus on those divisions and those things, those symptoms, if you like, we're going to find ourselves constantly unable to prefer the real solutions. What are the solutions? What is the issue? For example, look at the question of, and it was Bishop Kuka who raised the issue. No one has been prosecuted for, although that isn't entirely accurate, but it is largely true that you don't find very many prosecutions, because I've been involved in prosecutions related to religious violence. In fact, there was one that was going on in Gombe. It was never concluded, but while I was practicing as a lawyer. That was a lady, a female teacher who was killed by her students, who was killed by her students in a secondary school. But that's not the point. The point really is this, that why is it that there is no prosecution? Why is it that prosecutions are not concluded? Is it just merely a matter of religion? Oh no, it isn't. Ask yourself, how many high-profile homicides in Nigeria have been prosecuted to a conclusion? How many? How many? I mean, we all know, just as Ms. Adebola said, I mean, Ms. Adebola's father and a mentor to several of us died as Attorney General of this country. Nobody knows. Till today, he hasn't been prosecuted. Marshall Harry, so many others, high-profile murders, no prosecutions. No conclusion of what exactly happened. There is no closure in many of these cases. And it is so all over the place. I served as Attorney General in Lagos, as I said, for 8 years. We started the prosecution of those who were accused of killing Kudirat Abiola and the assault on Alex Igbo. After 4 years or 5 years of prosecution, daily in court, and as Attorney General, I was given priority in audience. So I didn't even have, I was in a position where at least I would be heard every time I was in court, unlike maybe some junior prosecutor. After 4 years, the trial had to start all over again because the accused persons accused the judge of having received a bribe, accused everybody and all of that. And of course, it wasn't true as it turned out. But they came back only to say that, well, after we have accused you, even though you've been found innocent of these accusations, you will be biased. There's no way you won't be biased. So you can't continue the trial. So we started all over again. 7 years on, we couldn't conclude the trial. That trial was concluded somewhat only after about 13 years or so. And that's the general thing. There is a basic problem with the administration of justice system. There's a basic problem with law enforcement. Whether or not, and religion, of course, religious issues and all of that play into this and can find cover under it. But we must fundamentally address the question of our administration of justice system. We must address that issue of law enforcement. And we've talked about the question of state police. To what extent should states be given the right to prosecute? What sorts of offenses are federal offenses? Religious offenses, should they be federal? Should they be categorized as terrorism so that they are treated in a different way? But I think that there are many fundamental issues that underlie several of the problems that have been identified, and we must deal with those issues because the value of human life is what it is that first leads to the kind of outrage that lets you say, I am going to ensure that you are prosecuted for killing. It's not just whether the person is Muslim or Christian or whatever. First, the value of human life. To what extent do we value human life? And even in the reporting of death, if you look at how death is reported anywhere, 100 dead in an expressway accident, 20 dead, 30 dead, no names, no identities, nothing. There is no, the outrage that comes from the loss of life isn't even there. So it's possible for any one of us, depending on the narrative that we want to promote, to contextuate that lack of outrage, to contextuate that lack of care for human life that we experience in whatever narrative that we want to prefer. But I think that we must understand that fundamentally there is something wrong. And that what is wrong goes beyond religion and goes beyond ethnicity. So the weakness of these institutions is for me a very, very important issue. The other thing that I want to just mention is that if you look at both religions, the president said, and I was quoting the president when he said we must not be deceived by those who kill in the name of religion, and that anyone who kills in the name of religion and then says God is great is either insane or doesn't understand the meaning of those words. In Christianity too, the Bible is very clear that it is, in fact, we are required to turn the other cheek when we are assaulted. And we're required to pray for our enemies. And that's what Jesus Christ said, pray for our enemies. Pray for those who despitefully use us. So the issue really is that in both cases, and practitioners of mainstream Islam or Christianity will tell you that they are both religions of peace. And they will tell you that neither promotes violence. And that is probably true. But I think that where we are unable to use religion for the positive purposes that it is meant for, and we use them only in order to promote some cause or some group aim, or to promote ourselves, or to promote some ascendancy of some idea or the other. That's where I think the trouble emerges and trouble comes. And when that comes, to cover it up and say that, well, it's the fault of the religion, it's the fault of the way it's expressed. I think that the truth is that it's an individual fault. It's a fault of those who prefer these religions one way or the other. It's very difficult to persuade Christians, even with all of what the scripture says, that don't fight if you're slapped. Very difficult. But that's what the religion says. And I'm sure it's very difficult on the other, for Muslims on the other hand too. But I think that it's important for us to bear in mind that It is our responsibility, it's the responsibility of the Nigerian elite to ensure that we are able to find resolution to these problems. I'm not as pessimistic as Dr. Kuka about the future of this country. No, I'm not. I know that sometimes it is because of his own personal frustrations about just looking at everything and seeing everything. Because if there is anyone who is an optimist, he is the optimist. Anybody who writes the number of things that he writes must be optimistic. Anybody who speaks the number of times he speaks must be optimistic. There's no way you can be optimistic if you are not, there's no way you can be so pessimistic if you're speaking as often as he does. But I understand that frustration. My view is that this country can surmount every one of its problems. But we must be able to, and I believe that it's the elite, we must be able to sit down and work out a proper plan to execute whatever it is that we believe will be the way out for this country. I don't think that it is left to just a government. No, it's not left to a government, because governments themselves are limited by the society. They are limited in very, very many ways by society. There must be a consensus. We must look at the religious elite must participate in this. The commercial elite must participate. The political elite must participate. We must bring ourselves together to talk about these issues and to resolve these issues in a sane manner. If we are not, and we must recognize why it is that these things are going on. I have often said that if you look at political appointments, for instance, a man will say that, let's use federal character or religion, as the case may be. Oh, there's already a Muslim there, so let's put a Christian side by side. There's already a man from the southwest, so let's have a man from the northeast. And that has become the way that we reason these matters. But the truth is that even that itself is hypocritical, because when we want to win in football, for instance, we don't ask how many Muslims are in the team. We don't ask how many Christians are in the team. We just go and look for the best because we want to win. Similarly, none of us ask what religion a doctor belongs to if you have a major health problem. You don't ask, oh, is the man Christian? Is he Muslim? Or does he even say he doesn't believe in God at all? The only question for you is, can this man do the job? Can he do the surgery? That's the only question. So underlying all of these things is just hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy. When we want to win, when we want to do things properly, we don't ask the questions about religion or ethnicity. It is when we want something for ourselves, when we're looking for some personal advancement, that will raise those questions. So I think that we must accept first what our problems are and design the solutions to them. And I very strongly believe that what we've heard today, a lot of what we've heard today, and the very good work that has been done by Professor Femi Vaughan will assist us in coming to some useful conclusion. Thank you very much.